Hi, everybody. I am Debbie from MadameStitch, and I am here today with Jamie of Remington Lane Crochet. Hey,
Hello.
Jamie, we're here to talk about her square for the 2024 Granny Stitch Sampler Blanket. And I'm really happy she joined me this year. It's just a wonderful collaborative experience, and I'm thrilled to have her square as part of the blanket. So, Jamie, we're going to start off by talking just a little bit about you, anything you want to share, anything you want to share about Remington Lane, maybe some of the kinds of designs that you like, just to give everybody an idea of who you are and what you're about.
Okay, sure. Hi everyone. I am Jamie. I am a designer of all things accessories and home decor, things that you can use to help celebrate all of life's moments. So I started off joining the prayer shawl ministry at my church. So that's kind of the genesis of my designing prowess of making my own shawls and then finding new stitches and different combinations. And that was something that I really liked doing. And so my first several designs, there's prayer shawls in there. I need to get back to doing more of that, but kind of branched out into more hats and scarves and cowls and accessories and blanket squares. This is my first blanket square that's not like a C to C color work chart. So I was super excited to join this one to test my designing skills and join the Cal. It was a lot of fun.
I absolutely love taking the granny stitch and just figuring out different ways to combine it with other stitches. And I'm always amazed at the variety that we get in all of the squares, because what we do is we infuse our own design style on a classic design.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to talk about what you did with your square. So the next thing I want to share with everybody, or I want you to share with everybody, is what stitches you added to a traditional granny square that I know you do a lot of post stitches
Hmm.
in your design. So that's what you brought to this granny square, and you did it in a really unique way. Can you describe how you combine the stitches?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, the front post treble crochet seems to be the stitch of the year for me. It's shown up in a lot of designs as I don't know if other designers are like this, but I tend to, like one thing and then your creative mind just keeps going and you're like, oh, I can use it for this and use it for that.
Yep.
So I added that stitch into this square, but I also have, I'm looking at it here, I have some regular double crochets and single crochets. So just having beginner basic stitches in the rounds. And the only tricky one is that front post treble crochet because we're doing it 2 rows below. So I loved that it added some texture and structure and kind of like geometric lines to the design, but also challenging myself by putting it in a different location than normal. So that was kind of fun to bring into it.
A lot of designers, and I'm included in that category, will take the granny stitch and just do a round of granny stitch and then combine other things with it. But in your design, you've actually alternated it with other
Sure.
stitches. So it's not, you actually took the granny stitch itself and sprinkled it throughout
That's true.
instead of
I did.
having just, yeah. So I think, again, here we are on the last square of the blanket. We're still adding some interesting dynamics to the granny square that people are going to enjoy making. I love the fact that you use a round of single crochet as kind of the foundation underneath your front post stitches.
Hmm.
So it gives you a way to skip that round and work around below without creating a lot of distance in it.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it super wholly or loose because I know once you get
Mhm.
past like the treble crochet stitch, they start to get long and tall and you can stick your toes through it in a blanket. Like I don't know how much holiness everyone loves per se. So yes, that single crochet just provides that spacer between the rows. And if you've ever done front post stitches or any kind of post into single crochets, those are really hard to locate and identify. So
Mhm.
it just kind of is a skip thing. But when you're not doing the front post stitches, you still see the single crochet around. So it still is there for that visual interest if it's, doesn't have a treble stitch on top of it.
Well, you talk about the holy nature of the square and how you wanted to avoid that. Traditional granny square, by its very nature, has a lot of holes in it. So
Hmm.
you've taken that granny stitch and you've sprinkled it throughout, but you've given not only texture, but a solid backing for the whole thing so that we have a square that has a lot of coverage to it.
Hmm. Yep. You just took the words out of my mouth, I guess.
It
I agree.
helps that I made the square.
Yes, that's true. It does.
It really does. Is there anything else you want to share about the actual design? I mean, the only thing that I would remind everybody about. I don't turn after every round in my
Mhm.
squares, just because I've learned to make it that way and to make it square. But
Yeah.
you actually turn after each round. So talk about that a little bit and how that affects starting each round um, as start a new
Yeah.
round and begin.
Yep. So turning in the rounds, you'll find, I believe you're turning in the
Hmm.
middle of the side. So it's not on a corner. So I know I've seen granny stitch squares where you like slip stitch over to the side and then you start your new round. So this one just kind of starts where you end. You flip it over. And that one that helped because you have that row of single crochets. And then when you flip back to the other side, you're ready to do your front post trebles. You don't have to do a lot of back and forth to try and get the texture to show up correctly. But yeah, just be mindful of that. If it helps to put a stitch marker there at the end of the round so you know what you're doing, and know where your slip stitch is that you join to. So you're not crocheting into that necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, that is one thing that I know not all granny stitch squares in the round have. A lot of the times hit my computer. A lot of times you're not flipping it over. So good reminders.
Yeah, yeah, we all have a particular way of making those squares, don't we?
Hmm.
All right, so there's one tip,
Yep.
make putting a stitch marker at the beginning of each round so you know where to start each round. I think that's really important in this one because a lot of that texture begins to blend together once you get the square built out a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, do you have any other tips for our makers that might make it easier for them to make your square?
Yeah. So on the front post treble crochet stitches, those are always because they're skipping 2 rounds below, you definitely want to make sure you keep an eye on your tension as you're pulling those stitches up because you want to keep them at the same height as the double crochet stitches that are next to them. So it does have a tendency to kind of pull in tighter, but when you're working those stitches, it's a good practice just to try and make them a little looser, see how they lay. It might take a little bit of getting used to the first couple times you do them if you're not as familiar with them. But that's definitely my big tip on making this one.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip for all front post stitches, to make sure that you pull up that loop to the height or more of
Hmm.
the row that you're working on. So, because they do tend to shrink just by the very nature of the way they're made. So I
Hmm.
think that's a great tip. I do know not all of the squares have to be blocked. I don't block all of my squares if they end up being the same size. But I do think that it helps with a front post square
Yeah.
like this one to block it and just let those stitches relax a little bit.
Hmm. Yep. It definitely helped. Like when I first made it, the sides were kind of like angled in just slightly. So blocking it kind of took care of that. And I know once you attach it into the blanket, that tends to help like even out those sides too, but
It does.
gives you a better starting point.
All right. Is there anything else you want to share about your square?
I don't know. I hope everyone loves it as much as I do. It
Oh
was
my
so
gosh.
fun.
It was fun to make. We haven't had a lot of front posting going on
Oh,
in
okay.
the blanket so far, so I think this is gonna be a great change of pace for everybody.
Oh, good. I'm excited.
All right. Well, I think that's it. We've covered whatever we need to cover.
Okay.
I'm going to thank you, Jamie, for joining me today and sharing all about you and your business and just being a fun friend of mine.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was so fun, and I'm excited to be the last square. So now everyone can put them together, and I know that's like the exciting part, right? You're like, "Oh, I'm done with the squares. Now I can assemble it all and get the seaming and the borders, and that's coming next." So,
Yeah, well, they're going to have to wait for me because they have to wait for me to post that. So we are
for
excited
sure.
to have all of the squares done, but they're posting in the Facebook group and it's really fun to see.
Mhm.
I know everybody's going to have a lot of fun making your square. So I'm going to encourage everybody to visit your website, remingtonlane.com, right?
Correct. Yep.
Because you have all kinds of designs and projects that people would love.
I do. So you can do that. Follow me on socials at Remington Lane Crochet. I think on all of the places, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. I think those are all the places I'm there. Instagram usually is the most active for me,
Yep.
but definitely check out the website and let me know if you have any questions.
And make sure they tag you when they make their
Yes.
square
Yes,
or
I love
anything else, right?
yeah, yeah, I know. I wanted to make a like multicolored version of this square and I didn't get
Mhm.
around to it. So I'd love to see anyone, I'll challenge anybody to make a multicolored version to see how that turns out too.
Ooh, that sounds fun. I think I might have to try that. All right, Ms. Jamie, I think we've covered it all. I'm going to say goodbye for now, and thanks
Yeah.
for being with me, and happy crocheting, everybody.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks everyone.